are you from and where do you live now?
So we're from Cornwall in the UK, and we're currently working in Papua New Guinea for MAF.
All right, and can you tell me a little bit about your family?
Yeah, we've got 2 adult children in their early 20s that are still, we've left behind in the UK. So, yeah, that was quite hard.
That was hard.
Yeah, it's probably been quite a while since you've seen them in person, right?
Yes. We catch up with them sort of once a week or once a fortnight. We're really blessed with modern technology and being able to sort of catch up on WhatsApp and see them. But it's not the same. Almost 18 months since we saw them. No, not quite. 12 months. Yeah, 12 months. 13,
No, it's longer than that.
14 months since we last saw them face to face.
Mathematical brain.
When did you join MAF and why?
So in 2018, I had a very serious life crisis. I had contracted sepsis and pneumonia together and almost died, almost didn't get out of hospital, which was, yeah, shocking. Wasn't expected at all. Been quite healthy up to that point, and really gave me a chance to just stop and think what I'd achieved in life, what I'd done that I wanted to do, what I hadn't done that I wanted to do, and just have a real reconsider and what path were we on? Was it the right path? Shortly before I was ill, I'd made a sort of 5-year plan as to how I'd work towards my retirement, and I think God had other ideas. That was really why I started looking. I've been looking for work to change job. I was working at the time, but in quite a stressful job, and I've been looking for something a little less stressful. Not quite sure I succeeded in that respect. But saw the job at MAF. I'd looked, I suppose, on and off over the years for missionary type work or work I could do for God as an engineer, but that's a bit limited. So, but that life crisis really was an opportunity for us to reconsider really what we were doing and what we hadn't done in life.
Yeah.
So 2019 we joined MAF and spent the first 6 or 8 months fundraising and working out what we're going to do with the house and trying to do all those kind of things before coming out to Papua New Guinea last October.
And Caroline, does your calling to join MAF go similar lines, or do you have anything to add about your experience?
It was a shock to me at that time. David applied for, he had only been down the stairs from his sickbed the once. No, I think it was just getting up there.
Well, twice.
But it was like he'd been home from hospital a few days.
Yeah.
So it was a shock, really. And it took me a while. But we had lots of confirmation that it was God. David's always wanted to do this, something big for God. And so I suppose that wasn't really a surprise. But having just almost lost him, it was quite tough for me because I was in overprotective mode. The calling to MAF really, it fitted in with prophecies that I had over the years that you just kind of shelve. Things like, oh, you're going to travel. And
whole new world.
Yes, I'd had a couple of about having a whole new world, but it was really totally unexpected for me. One of the biggest confirmations that we had was at the time I was almost actively looking for somebody to say no, don't go.
Yes.
And we thought it was a dead cert to go and see an old school friend that was a non-Christian. And we went to see them, and
her husband particularly is quite a cynic.
And said that I can see how everything in your life is leading up to this point. And you can't argue with that then. You know, it's kind of, that has to be good.
So had you guys heard about MAF before you did the job search, Dave?
Yeah, so I remember MAF coming to my church when I would have been about 35 years ago is probably the best way to phrase it.
No, it's better to say you're about 7.
Better to say I was about seven or 8, yeah. So when I was about 8 or 9 years old, maybe that's better, yeah. I remember MAF actually bringing the small plane to our church in Bournemouth.
Oh, really?
And meeting the pilot and the engineer that looked after the plane and thinking, wow, that would just be amazing to do something like that. And it's probably one of the reasons I moved towards engineering, in my career choice later on. But I've never been an aircraft engineer, and although I've looked over the years, on and off, MAF always advertised for pilots and aircraft engineers, and unfortunately, I'm not that sort of licensed engineer. So I was a little surprised to find they got maintenance people as well. So. But yes, I've known about them for a very long time.
And I'd read lots of missionary books and been involved with church and conferences where they've been.
Had stands.
Yeah, had stands at conferences and things. So I think we'd known about them for a long time.
So Dave, can you tell me about your role with MAF?
So I'm a property and vehicle maintenance manager. So I look after around 72 houses that MAF have where staff live across Papua New Guinea, as well as 12 bases, which consist of aircraft hangars in some of those and offices, and look after all of that, and the vehicle fleet as well. So we have about 14 or 15 vehicles we look after as well. So yeah, that's my role. It's an underlying role, but critical. I have a team in Papua New Guinea of about 8 or 9 guys who are great, and I'm sharing my skills and my experiences with them and helping them to learn new skills and new ways of doing things, which hopefully will improve the quality of the housing and the offices and stuff that we look after.
What do you enjoy most about your role?
I like mentoring and coaching people. So I like being able to share my experiences and what I've learned over the years. One of the reasons I've often wondered if we should have done this before, but actually I don't think I would have had the skills and experience and knowledge that I can share today had we come out to the mission field earlier. So actually, having sort of 30 odd years experience in engineering is great because I can share that, I can teach people new things, and I can help mentor and coach them and encourage them to learn things and do things for themselves. That's what I love the most.
What's the most challenging?
One is managing expectations. When you have a workforce, there's different opinions and different expectations to what they want and what they expect. But also, you're in a country where you can't just go down the road and buy what you want off the shelf. I've spent sort of 20, 30 years where I can just go to a wholesaler and get what I want without any problem. Here in Papua New Guinea, it's a bit more like you've got to go and sort of find what's available and then work out how you're going to use it. And that's, I guess, where the breadth of experience that I've got comes in really handy, because you can't always get just the right bit to do what you want to do.
I've gone back to being the traditional housewife, the cooking and the cleaning and but I come into the office on a Friday and we do low to the morning devotion, and then I go around taking people's blood pressure, which has helped me to get to know the staff and
you pray with people quite a bit, don't you?
Yes. Prayer is my main thing. So I'm taking people's blood pressure and they tell me there's stresses in their lives and we can pray about it.
What does MAF mean to you?
For me, it's about serving people in remote places. That's the key thing for me. When we came out for our look-see, I was blessed to be involved in a medical evacuation, and to experience what a medical evacuation means for someone who lives in a remote tribe, in a remote area. The father in this instance actually walked for 2 days with his daughter who had bad burns, and he'd had to walk for 2 days just to get to the airstrip. So to be involved in that in some way, that one, yes, I was involved in the flight and everything else, but knowing that I'm supporting that and that's what we are, the service we provide in PNG is the big thing for me, that we're really reaching the needs of those people in the remote places.
Is there any advice that you would have given yourself at the outset of this whole journey with MAF?
I think it's something that somebody said to us quite early on, actually. We had some friends who have been in the mission field themselves, and one of the things they said to us is know your calling. Now, I really struggled with that to start with, because I didn't get a blinding lights, God speaking from the sky, you're going to Papua New Guinea type calling. And so I struggled a little bit with that when I first was given that advice. But what we did do was to start, Caroline has always journaled, but we started to add to that journal a little bit, those things that really were speaking to us at the time, and confirmation for that calling. And I wrote a piece on my blog about that whole calling thing, because it isn't very often that sort of blinding light flashing neon letters in the sky, but actually when you start putting things together, things like our good friend saying, I can see how everything you've ever done has led up to you going and doing what you're doing, you just think, wow. And that was a person that's known us for over 30 years. So that's the kind of confirmation that really you've got to hang on to. You've got to be prepared to remember, to write down, to document. But knowing that calling and being sure of it, making sure scripturally it's sound and that you're speaking to the right people.
The other thing was, we initially thought, we're too old to be missionaries. Going out in our 50s.
And again, as I've looked back, it's what I said earlier, that, actually, if we'd have come out 20, 30 years ago, I couldn't share the knowledge and experience that I've got, having spent 30 years in my job, doing what I've done for the last, years. I'm only able to do what I'm doing because of we're coming out now in our 50s.